Hello, and welcome to the Hotel News Now podcast. I'm news editor Sean McCracken. In November, the biggest news of the month was the electoral victory of Donald Trump, who will take over the White House in January. H&N's Brian Roten recently checked in with Fisher Phillips' Andrea Ryan to talk about how the labor environment might shift under a new presidential administration, including the federal joint employer rules.
Something that we've seen go back and forth as well is in somewhat related to independent contractor, just in terms of status, joint employer. Do you expect to see movement on that area quickly?
I would think so. Quickly is another question, Brian. But it's really a lot of it's enforcement, and so if the agency starts to roll back some enforcement efforts, then we'll, the industry will benefit from that.
And joint employer is something that falls under two categories, correct?
Joint employer?
Mm-hmm. Isn't that
well?
something?
It falls under, it falls under many categories, right? You're a joint employer. You could be joint employer for pay purposes, for EEO purposes, for harassment discrimination purposes. So what I tell many in the industry when I'm speaking, listen, I don't concede the issue, certainly don't concede that you're a joint employer, but under the Biden administration, you are more likely than not to be considered a joint employer. And so make sure you're partnering with really reputable partners, agencies that are doing things properly, that are vetting folks for immigration purposes, that are paying employees properly, that are doing the right thing when it comes to discrimination, harassment, accommodation of disabilities. You want to make sure you're partnering with a reputable staffing agency, because joint employer finding is inevitable.
That sounds like pretty good advice regardless.
Yeah, I think so, Brian. I think so. I think there's always a balance. We need these folks. We really do. They're good employees, but they're working for a staffing agency for a reason, right? They're either lifetime decision. They don't want a full-time employment. Their immigration status is questionable. There's a lot of reasons they might be with a staffing agency. So I think it's important that employers be careful and be wary of who they're partnering with.
On the latest episode of Tell Me More, a hospitality data podcast, hosts Isaac Colazzo and Jan Freitag dove into how the outlook for 2025 might be just more of the same compared to 2024.
I don't think that group demand is going to change drastically. I think corporate transient demand is going to change drastically. I think those things are here with us. I'm really, really interested. I don't want to say worried. Interested about the weekend performance, to see how that translates. When we come out of Thanksgiving and Christmas, but when we get into January and February, what are hoteliers going to do? And what is the American consumer going to do on weekends?
And I keep thinking about a lot of it is, again, experiential. And again, events are driving weekends, everything from football games to concerts, right? We're seeing that across the country. And so, it'll be interesting. January, we'll probably see a little weaker weekends because things will it's the end of the holidays and people trying to reset. But again, I think for me, as I think about it, and you mentioned our forecast, for me, it's more of the same right now. I know there's a lot of optimism for 2025, but right now, when I look at the data, when I look at the economic forecast, to me, it's just more of the same.
The Hotel News Now podcast capped off the month of November heading into the Thanksgiving holiday with co-stars Emmy Heiss taking stock of what hoteliers have to be thankful for. So, Emmy, let's kick it off. What's the thing that you are most thankful for this year?
Thing I'm most thankful for. I feel like there's a lot of categories, but let's just start. I'm going to start industry because we're on Hotel News Now, right? Mm-hmm. And I think I am thankful for all of the events and cool events that happened this year in the hospitality space, seeing so many people catching up, talking about things, whether things that they're excited about, stressed about, but just hearing so many perspectives and then aligning our data with it. But I think the bigger part of that, more than just like my personal feeling about it, is people are meeting for groups. They're getting together. People continue to get together for business group travel. And I'm thankful for that because I think it's so important.
On the Next Gen in Lodging podcast, host Davon Reeves and guest Tommy Bayer shared their personal experiences of why networking is vitally important for young hoteliers.
Tommy, I met you through Under 30 Gateway, and I met other folks such as Sean and Jason Alea, all these different people, Ashley Johnson, all these different people who I still have these relationships. And I was able to connect with so many people. You know, we had our annual meeting during the fall conference, during the fall HX conference. And now we're here. And it's just so beautiful how we were able to maintain those relationships professionally, personally. And, you know, we were able, business deals came about from that just through an organization where it was designed to get young folks together. So how has Under 30 Gateway or being involved with professional organizations when you were in college or after college, how did that help you along your journey, Tommy?
Yeah, it's similar. I mean, it's kind of one of those things at the time you're super excited to be part of anything like that. I don't know. I guess I was probably in my early 20s when I got to be a part of it. But, so we were just building your network. At that point, the network your network consisted of, maybe the one or two hotels you'd worked at or people you went to school with or that kind of thing. So it was a really good way specifically the AHLA Under 30 Gateway was a really good way to connect with folks that were from different parts of the country, different parts of the industry. And I'd add it was, maybe I'm a little biased here, but it felt like it was something like the cream of the crop, right? Some of your, more up and coming stars in the industry, people who had, had a lot to contribute. And I think the AHLA did a nice job with it because they let us kind of run it. I mean, and they let us have like a real voice in what was going on. So I'd say it allowed me to build my network. Like you said, that's where we connected. That's where I connected with Omari, connected with Mark Williams, Ashley Johnson. And it's been really exciting to see, how people's careers have grown and evolved over the years.
And finally, on H&N's Europe, Middle East, and Africa focused podcast, The Upgrade, Terrence Baker connected with Wyndham Hotels and Resorts' Dimitris Manikis to discuss the outlook for franchising and travel demand in Europe and Manikis' projections for the next half-decade.
So what I see in the next 5 years, first of all, I see me retiring, hopefully. I see franchising growing more. I see consolidation in brands buying other brands. I see the growth of white label operators, and I see the world changing hands. We saw it in Italy. Suddenly in Italy, the family business is selling. The family business, the next generation doesn't want to stay in the business. This is happening in Spain, in Portugal, in Italy, in Greece, in Turkey. So all of this will create a completely different world, both in the franchising, but the white label operators as well. So this is a very interesting development in our business in the next 5 years.
Thanks for listening to the Hotel News Now podcast. This episode was recorded and edited by Sean McCracken on December 10th, 2024. For more on the global hotel industry, visit hotelnewsnow.com, and don't forget to rate and review this podcast on your platform of choice.
Hi, I'm Davon Reed.
I'm Omari Head.
And I'm Chris Henry.
We're the hosts of the Next Gen in Lodging podcast on the Hotel News Now podcast network. It's a monthly show in which we interview a new generation of hoteliers to get their insights into a variety of disciplines and topics, from finance to food and beverage and hotel operations. Listen to us on Spotify, Google, Apple Podcasts, or wherever you get your podcasts.